Welcome to the Gooners podcast, season 6, episode 38. I love how that intro video, Owen, starts with Andy does everything studio. Andy does everything except for show up for the show that he claimed he was gonna be captaining the ship for. So, welcome back, Andy. You look very different than the last time.
Yeah.
So we got a duck breaking. Hold on, I got to give you your intro. We got a duck breaking appearance today. This is our 301st episode. I completely missed the boat that our open mic the other day was our 300th episode. So that's the kind of fanfare you could expect at the Gooners podcast. But starting our 4th century of episodes, we have an absolutely stellar duck breaker, and I'm trying to go until I can find this. French, my friend, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the intro. Yeah, man, I'm good. I'm glad I'm finally here. Yeah, it's been a while. How come it took you so long to invite me?
I don't know. I mean, Andy kept saying we can't have people who are French, and I'm like, no, he's not. I mean, it has nothing to do with being French. He just loves using his tongue on things. And,
yeah, I'm actually not.
And as soon as he found out about that, he's like, all right, well, that works. So we'll have him on. So to tell us a little bit about you. I mean, I met you through how I meet most people through Tom Canton. And did you just kind of, I mean, how did you guys meet? Were you one of the members on his podcast? Did you, I mean, what's the backstory there?
Yeah, that was, it was a while ago. So he kind of reached out. I think this was even before he had like the members thing and members coming on. He just wanted a few more people, different faces on the pod. And yeah, I was like, this was just, I think Emery was there at the time. And I was kind of outlining my views on why I didn't like him. And I sent him that video because I had my own little Arsenal football channel at the time. And I was like, yeah, let me hop on your thing. And it just went from there, really. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've never actually met any of you guys in person, so
having your own Arsenal football channel just makes you a person, apparently. Like that. That's the qualifications that anyone has to have. I'm not saying that yours is not, amongst the most premier ones. I'm just saying, I think you're born now with an Arsenal football channel, like your social security number if you're here in the States and your Arsenal football channel address. No, but you're brilliant, man. I enjoy you in our chat. I enjoy you on the on Tom's show. So it's just been way too long. Plus, we need people who are awake at 10 o'clock p.m. to come on the show, and you fit the bill. So, I always talk about how Arsenal needs to be in the top 6 by Hanukkah. I mean, this whole festive season thing, the Christmas and the New Year's and Boxing Day. For me, it's all about Hanukkah. And another huge date in the Arsenal football calendar every year is Rosh Hashanah. Now, I have to say, it's been 14 years since the new year 57-82, and Arsenal have won every single game this year. We've allowed 0 goals this year. We're joint top of the year 57-82 table, and guess who's bottom? Rock bottom with no goals and 6 allowed. Ironically enough, Tottenham. So, people talk shit about that whole second half of the year table last year that started on Boxing Day, and they said it didn't mean anything. No one can argue that the 57-82 table is really what we've all been shooting for, and so we're off to a great start, right, French?
Yeah, I can't argue with that logic. That's absolutely flawless. Obviously, the other thing that I've personally been watching is the season only starting after international break. All those kind of preseason games under the belt, and we're off to a flying start. And I mean, in complete seriousness, we have jumped 7 places in the last 2 games. So even if it's mathematically impossible, in another 2 games, we should be top of the league.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Owen, that's you're good at maths, right?
Yeah, that's my thing. Yeah.
Math, construction, and what was the other thing?
Boxing references.
we're learning what Owen's skill set is week by week.
If it's dealing with multiplication, building shit, or punching shit, I'm your guy.
Well, honestly, I will say at this point, Andy is either really taking the piss or something happened at his house. So,
I know that's a pet hate of yours to call for the podcast, but I'm trying to be like my idol, Mr. LG, the real one.
Yeah.
I was always halfway there because I'm a cunt already, and now I'm a coughing cunt. So, yeah, sorry, crack on.
You just need to improve the sniffling and the touching your nose and the not eating of sandwiches. But I trust that with time you'll get that down.
Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, this is also as long as we're doing our laundry here, this is also the 2-year anniversary of a famous podcast. And I was going to wish Andy a happy 2-year anniversary, but he's not here. 2 years ago this week, Arsenal defeated Aston Villa 3-2 after going down 2-0 in the first half. I think we can all remember that game. And because we are the podcast of knowledge, we are the podcast of strong opinions and righteousness, I need to just point out to the haters that was the podcast where I pointed out that Guendouzi should be our next captain after Xhaka, where his leadership skills were shining through, that he was rooted, he was grounded, he clearly loved playing for the badge, and that we should extend his contract, give him a raise, and make him captain, despite his young age. So, I mean, got that one right. And also, I believe in that game, Aubameyang gave Pepe his penalty, taking promise for Pepe's first goal, so he could get Pepe kind of, his duck broken as well. So, I mean, those leadership qualities shone through, and I think I talked about how he gave everything and left it all on the pitch as well. So
that's why I'm actually kind of pissed off, because that was the last game I was actually at. So it was Aston Villa where we come back 3-2. And I'm kind of annoyed because the dates that we lined up to go to our next game
is Villa
again.
You were at that game?
Yeah, I was at it. It was fucking something else when that I think it was the Aubameyang free kick was the last goal that went in. It was just absolutely, the atmosphere was superb in that game.
That day I was traveling for business down to Austin, Texas, which is a fantastic city, by the way, and a fantastic supporters club for Arsenal America. And I got in, got my luggage, and looked at my phone, and it was already 2-0 Aston Villa. Rushed, took an Uber ran straight to the pub where the game was on, showed up at halftime, and we came back. So, I mean, again, this is all about me taking credit for things, and I won that game for Arsenal. It was a massive game. Then I was still in town for I think we beat Forest 5-0 or something the next day, or the next game in the cup. So happy 2-year anniversary on that, and I'm looking forward to catching Villa with just about everybody I've ever met from podcasting. I think is going to be there. So it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be fun. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed.
The moment I thought Guendouzi was going to be our future captain was against Brighton when Leno got injured, and he just put pause on fucking Mopa. I was like, yes, this is the guy. This is the energy I want.
I liked that. I mean, people think that's the reason he was banished. People think that's the reason why I don't care for the guy anymore. No, that I loved. I mean, stand up for your teammates. That's fine. It's the talking about your wage packet with the Brighton players. It's clearly the things that we heard were going behind the scenes with regards to, not being, I guess, apologetic for or able to really listen to authority from a management standpoint, especially when it came to Arteta coming in. It just sounds like the guy was a real punk who got mixed up with the clique. 18, 19-year-old kid who comes into the squad, and whether it's language or just personality, just fell in with the group of people who ultimately would be the ones who were trying to destroy the club from within, and seemed to really not want to be part of the new era, which, your Tierney and Saka and Smith Rowe type era. And so I have no problems with what the club did with them. I could be completely wrong on that, but we do, we have various rodents and insects that are inside the club that tell us stuff. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So that said, I took my first watch. I watched the first half of the Marseille Rennes game. French, how is it pronounced?
Rennes.
Stade Rennes.
Stade Rennes, yeah.
I gotta say, Guendouzi and Saliba look pretty damn good. I mean, have you watched them play at all?
That's the problem. He was like, it's fine when you say fuck you to Mopai and fuck you to the Brighton fans, but he just kept saying fuck you. And then Arteta came in, I was like, fuck you too. And it's like, all right, bro. you have to have another switch, and yeah, that's where he went wrong. But he's a kid.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he figures it out, but it won't be with us, unfortunately. That's the only problem.
No, it won't be. But
It's the maturity level wasn't there, and inconsistent morals. Does that remind you of anybody else? Can you see a reason as to why those two people maybe clashed?
You're talking about me?
No, you definitely no. You don't have inconsistent morals. They're consistently not there.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about modern day football, not some trilly headed.
Definitely. So I'm going to go off of Andy's outline, which he was kind enough to give us. Otherwise, we would be ending the podcast right now. I was pretty excited at this 11 that got put out before the game. I mean, there would have been. It's the first time I've ever looked at our squad and who's available and say I'd really only make one change to that. And we've just talked about how tactically and predictably astute that I am, and that I'm always right. So clearly, I would have made one change, and I think it's the obvious one. I mean, Lakanga. Yeah, I would have put Guendouzi back in and Saliba. Yeah, I mean Lakanga over who was it that started?
Partey was by himself almost, wasn't he? In the lineup, it was.
Yeah, because Odegaard was playing more as
it was deeper. Yeah.
And I wasn't even fully committed to that because against a team like Burnley, as opposed to a team with the greater capacity to expose it. I mean, playing Odegaard deep and ESR at the same time, worthwhile risks to take, I think. But French, what did you? I mean, is that our strongest 11? How close is it? What changes would you have made?
I mean, I think there's with Arteta, it's going to be a bit of a Swiss Army knife type of situation where he just changes the formation to some degree and maybe the kind of the look of the lineup depending on who we've got. I like the fact that we've got a settled back five at this point. Like it seems like Ramsdale's going to be our number one. I think Leno's going to play some games, obviously, but Gabriel and White, that's a partnership. If Tierney's fit, he starts, and if Tomiyasu's fit, it looks like he's going to start. And it's nice to just have that solidity penciled in. This was exciting to have really five out and out kind of what we consider attackers on the pitch, and have obviously Odegaard coming a little bit deeper, and with Partey with a little bit probably too much responsibility. But it was an exciting and it was a positive kind of initiative, and I was really happy to see that that's the route that Arteta's deciding to go down. When his next really he's up against the wall, he's got no choice, and so it would be easy to kind of come in and go defensive and play old names that we know. And he was like, nah, fuck it, we're gonna go with the new guys. I trust them. This is what it is. We haven't even seen Lacazette for a couple games, which is interesting, and just the confidence he's putting in these young players, I think it's great. Whether it completely worked, I don't know. I think when Sambi came on, it looked much better in terms of Partey not having quite so much to do. It just seemed like as soon as Sambi came on, there was always someone there to pass to for either fullback. There was always someone on one particular side to just take care of things. Whereas before, there was a lot of that kind of gesturing in the air, and they kind of almost kick the ball, but then they don't. And then it's like, all right, fine, we'll go back. And so I think, it's definitely going to be a Swiss Army knife kind of thing. But I like the intention. I was really happy to see that. So there was no complaints for sure. Hopefully
it's a Swiss Army knife with nothing remotely Swiss about it. because I mean, someone who's always put in some very good comments in the chat until this one, where is it? I lost it, which is, I think he basically said, and I hope that his tongue in cheek is that he would put Lord Xhaka in instead of Thomas in the next game. There's no place for that in here.
No way.
But speaking of Guendouzi, though, and I want your opinion on this too, Owen, but French, the Sambi Lakanga has started his Arsenal career much in the same way that Guendouzi did, where he might have been thought of as kind of one for the future. I think we all thought Guendouzi was going straight to the U21s or 23s. I don't think anyone thought that about Lakanga, but we didn't anticipate him getting the kind of time that he got, and he's been off to a fantastic start. We then saw Guendouzi kind of regress a little bit after that. They're not the same type of players in any way, shape, or form, for good or for better or for worse. But, do you worry about too much too soon for him, or is he your I won't say Basuma replacement, but like, is he the guy now that needs to make Xhaka and El Neni and all those other guys have spot duty because he starts every game?
I would love to say that's the case. I've got a feeling Xhaka's just going to do Xhaka stuff and end up back in that 11 consistently, because that's just what he does one way or another when he's there. But in terms of the comparison, for me, the thing with Guendouzi, right? Like when Emery was there, that midfield was pretty much empty. There was just huge wide spaces. And Guendouzi was just like this marauding lunatic who just turn up in random places and get fouls and pop the ball around with no real consistent defined role as to what if he's like he's not really a 6, he's not really an 8, and he's just there and he does good things. Whereas Arteta's system is kind of the opposite, in the sense that everyone's quite regimented and everyone has a clear role and a consistent kind of expectation of where they're supposed to be, and we can see it in terms of how it builds up. It doesn't always work, but we can see the kind of regimented structure of how we play. And the fact that Sami's just slotted in and done so well and looked like an upgrade on so many of our senior players in a system that is quite regimented, that asks a lot of him, that puts a lot of responsibility on him, for me is an incredibly positive sign. And I don't really have that concern, because ultimately Xhaka and Partey, whilst not being, amazing, is probably not, it's top 6 quality, it's probably not even top 4 quality. It's not an awful midfield pairing. If Sambi has a bad couple of months, or during AFCON, Xhaka has to step up with maybe Maitland-Niles or whoever's going to be around. It's not the worst thing in the world to have Xhaka to fall back on. So it's not really a concern for me. I'm just really impressed, and I continue to be impressed every time he plays, because he looked good before he came, like when you watch the little YouTube comps. But it's a whole different thing to step in on a Premier League match day, wearing Arsenal kit and looking the part, and he really does.
He looks every bit the part. I'm not one to make transfer decisions based on AFCON and other relatively short in the grand scheme of things competitions, but it is just now hitting me that Lokanga and Partey will both be gone at the exact same time for potentially a month or more, and that is, this whole don't sign Onana because of AFCON thing.
Basuma.
You can get and Basuma, you can get out of here with that. But yeah, all right. So Eoin, Lokanga, other than AFCON, is he your nailed on starter in that situation? I mean, we can talk about
he's not eligible for it. He's Belgium international. Is he not?
Why did I let you talk me into that, French? He is Belgium. Well, he played for
Right, yeah. Of course.
He's a Belgium international.
Yeah, he plays for Belgium.
Before anyone casts aspersions upon me making assumptions, I was just following along with.
He literally played for Belgium in the last international break.
But there's both Walker Chefs in the corner there.
First of all, yes, and now I'm going to get canceled here. French and I are just going to go.
I thought it was just maths. I didn't know you did countries.
I don't. Tom does geography. I do math and Jewish holidays. So those are my two things.
But yeah. I mean, the point still is that, if he is bad for a couple of seasons, Jack will be in there. It's all right, isn't it?
I think that this just highlights for me that we
Aston, no, I do not think they all come from
and it's spelled with a capital B, Aston. Spelled with a capital B, since we're correct.
Capital B, yes.
Yeah, grammar, bitch.
Please get me out of this, though.
Yeah, no, you're good. I'll get you out of it. No, I think this just highlights the fact that we don't need to necessarily make these big marquee signings, that the business has to be sensible. Now, I think what we seen against Burnley was what Mikel Arteta wants to eventually move to, that 4-3-3 with just one sitting number 6 and two more creative box-to-box midfielders ahead of him. Unfortunately, I think that he doesn't have the personnel to do that just yet. I think what we're starting to see is a manager who knows he may be on limited time, and now he wants to maybe start accelerating, getting those ideas onto the pitch a bit faster. Unfortunately, I still think that I think the increased levels of performance we've seen, and I said this about Norwich as well, is that we're upgrading on personnel, we're upgrading individually on players in certain positions, and that's going to radiate throughout the squad to give us a better performance. But I'm still seeing systemic problems in terms of building up play through midfield. I'm still seeing systemic problems in terms of our wingers coming in from wide and making those runs across the box, to the far post. There's just not a lot of organization. It seems to me like it's very, very rigid up until the final third, and then they're just absolutely shot of ideas when it comes to attacking creativity, or almost like the shackles on them that they're not allowed to get too much out of position, like they're maybe overcoached. So that's where my worries comes with Mikel Arteta at the minute. But in regards to Sammy Lokonga, I think that's our ideal partnership at the minute. I think that a double pivot of Partey and Lokonga is what probably will be best. I think that Granit Xhaka, coming back from his suspension, has an absolute task on his hands, getting Lokonga out of the side. That's not to say Mikel Arteta won't hand him. He should, and that's the problem. That's just what I was going to say. That's the caveat is that Mikel Arteta has shown to be inconsistent with his decision making at times. And for me, Sambi Lokonga has probably been our most consistent player. He brings a sense of calm to the midfield, maybe arguably even more so than Thomas Partey in terms of his on the ball retention. But yeah, look, it's for me, it's something I don't have a lot of faith in. It's something that I think Mikel Arteta has shown over a fair amount of time now that he sometimes doesn't have the capabilities to make those tough decisions, to sort of exclude high-profile players when it's needed.
I think.
Sorry. Go ahead. On the Burnley game, like, I'm totally with you with the coaching of the attack thing, and that's really been like the main question for me in terms of the last few months. Once the defense got all right, that was the next step. The last game against Burnley, I find it hard to really say that was our problem. I think there was a lot of just poor passing in the final third, which I can only really look at the players for. Asaka had a lot of poor touches. Pepe did as well. There was a lot of times where obviously there was all kinds of talk about the turf being all dry and a bit long and but there was hit the ball harder. That's what Burnley do. It's not like a new thing that they've just come up with this season.
Yeah, weird turf never hurt a golfer. I mean, they just adjust to it.
But do you think, French, looking at that, because for me, as somebody who like yourself, I'm sure, played football for a long time and have managed as well, is that it almost seems to me like the players are almost afraid to misplace a pass, to be too adventurous, because I've got a feeling that they get over-criticised for making a mistake and losing possession. Because Mikel Arteta seems to me like a stickler for somebody who wants to retain the ball for as long as possible. But I can't remember the last time I seen somebody get the ball kicked in front of them. Every single person is facing our own goal and getting the ball with their back to the opposition's goal, and that's just not the right way to play football. You need to be,
and I agree with that, but I think people, I noticed that as well. There's a lot of passing to feet, but often people are making the runs, and then the pass is being made behind them. So again, I think there's an element of things not clicking, and maybe the players being low on confidence. But I do think we had a lot of potential chances, or just before the chance creation kind of moments in that game, where it was just not clicking in the final third. And Arteta can't pass the ball for them. So I don't know. So I don't know. I hear you, but I do feel like in the last game, we should have had a few more chances, and it was down to the players not having the quality rather than us not being able to get there.
There's a little bit of symmetry going on here, because last year, right before the North London derby, the captain of the ship showed up late. There's this thing called time zones and Siri, where you can say, Siri, what time is when is 10 o'clock p.m. UK time? And it'll translate it to Denver, and you'll know.
So my mother told me they had daylight savings in England, so I assumed it was
That's not even true.
I swear to God, it is true. So I was just working out when I saw Owen's text being like, Rhodesy, where are you? Or something. I was like, fuck.
I'm trying to work.
And now he's just realized that the dogs ate his fucking homework too.
I'm like
I'm trying to work
a fool.
I'm trying to work out whether this daylight savings time would have made you an hour early or an hour late, even, because that might even end up being a bogus explanation.
Dude, like I even look at this. I was working out. I was going to go to 30 miles and then stop, and then I saw the text. I got to 28.6. I was like, "Fuck." sorry, boys.
No, you're a little rusty with this. So yeah, so first of all, we've broken our duck with French. French convinced me that Sambi Lakonga was from Africa. I went with it like an idiot. Aston called us out, and we're canceled. So this is our 301st and final Gooners podcast show. And
I'm surprised it took this long to get canceled.
I'm glad the over/under was 299 shows that we would get canceled, or was it 2.9 shows? So
are you going off the agenda I at least wrote for this?
We are moving along your agenda. We've basically pretty much just we've talked about Lakonga. We're starting to really get into the fact that there really is no fluidity up front. Eoin and French have carried that conversation because, again, I am whatever the opposite of tactical noose. I'm like noosical tactics or whatever it is. But yeah, you had written in there that kind of, is there a better combination than what we've been seeing with Saka, Pepe, Abba, and ESR? Are we going to see a and I'll throw this to you, Andy, put you right in the fire to answer your own question. I mean, we've got Martinelli on the bench, we've got Balogun in there. I mean, is there a way to unlock creativity better than we have, or is it just going to come down to them grasping Arteta's what he's trying to do and executing it better? Yeah,
absolutely. I want to say hi to Aston, Danny, Mike, Bearded Gooner, all the people in the chat saying hi. And Danny's right. I am here an hour early. I don't know. Like, for me, when you look at that front four that we had, and with Odegaard right behind them, right, as I put, like, he's a center midfielder, and that's probably why you were talking about, Sammy not starting and maybe him being there. For me, like, I just don't see Pepe as the choice. I don't understand why he keeps starting. I don't rate him at all. His first touch is awful. If you're a defender and you're marking him, you know exactly what he's going to do every time. He maybe has one game where he's brilliant. It's usually against poor opposition.
Sure.
Well, I don't know. And like Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe are so young, they get marked out of the game like they did on Saturday. And it's like it took them a while to get into it. But I just don't see where that spark is going to come. And you thought it would be Odegaard, right? So why not push Saka outright, drop Pepe to the bench, put Odegaard in that attacking position, slot in Lakonga into center midfield where Odegaard was, and I think you have a better attack. But just something's not right, and I don't know. Oh, and is it Arteta's system? Because like even if you have a front four of that talented of players, regardless of the system, you're going to get moving, right? Channels are going to get run into. You're going to create. Aubameyang shouldn't be in this drought. Like, it just seems odd. It's like they're forced up front.
You're drawing the negativity out of the fan base right now with negative Mikey is with you about that. So
yeah, no. Look, here's what I
say. Sorry, Owen. Before, am I the only one that's not on the Pepe boat, or are there other people that haven't like?
There are a tremendous amount of people that aren't on the Pepe boat. I'm still on the Pepe boat, but you're not alone.
Don't worry, I'm going to cover that with this, okay? But I think this is like a double-edged sword type of thing. I think that there is systemic issues in terms of our attacking game because, and this might get me a bit of trouble. There's going to be a few things here that gets me a bit of trouble in the chat, I'm sure.
I mean, let's just get it all out of this one podcast.
Not that kind of trouble like you get yourself into, like football trouble where people won't like my opinions. So I actually think that when you look at Bukayo Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe, in terms of the chances that they create, the shots they take, I actually think they've slightly regressed in that sense. I think that their passing game has improved. I think that the way that they carry themselves, how comfortable they are on the pitch has improved. But I think that little sparkle that they had when they first burst on the scene has been almost drained out of them, especially Emile Smith-Rowe. And that goes back to my point again about maybe them being over scrutinized for making mistakes. The only thing I will say is about Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, and the whole Pepe thing is that this is my problem, and this isn't to say anything about either Emile Smith-Rowe or Saka. They're both absolutely flawless fantastic players in my opinion, and will be fantastic players in the future. But Nicola Pepe, as you said, Andy, has a bad touch, loses the ball a lot, yet he still has probably double the goal and assist output of Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe combined last season. So does that say something about Nicola Pepe, or does that say something about Emile Smith-Rowe and Saka? And my problem isn't with them as players, it's with where we are and the amount of pressure that we are putting on both of these kids when they're just not ready to take that kind of pressure on. And this is what I mean by this is the other thing that's going to get me into a little bit of trouble. If you were to give me a choice over either Emile Smith-Rowe or Saka, I think that Emile Smith-Rowe is the more complete footballer at the minute. I think that Saka's versatility gets him more games and more positions, and you can rely on him more if you need him. But in terms of being slightly more polished, I think that Emile Smith-Rowe is going under the radar, maybe not of Arsenal fans, but of every other fan base. I think that if I was to throw my hat on a player that's going to be an absolute star, I think that Emile Smith-Rowe is showing every single sign of it. Because for me, when you talk about him being marked out of the game last week, I think we just didn't do enough to utilize his strengths against Burnley.
I don't think you could get criticized for saying that. I mean, Emile Smith-Rowe has skill sets. I mean, Saka, I think, has the bigger upside, but Smith-Rowe is a more complete player. And I mean, my hope is that none of this ends up mattering. But French, this is why man management is a large part of managing a team. And I'm not convicting. This is not the hate Arteta show, as Wenger Kid has said in here. This is the hate Wenger Kid shut. No, I'm just kidding. It's not at all. I'm still very much wanting him to succeed, but he's got some challenges because some of the players that saved the club last season are starting to really kind of look a little bit jaded. And do they need a rest? Do they need a pep talk? Do they need to be played in a different position? Does Saka need to be moved to the right rather than the left? It's Arteta's job to figure all this out, isn't it?
Well, and let me just say this.
It's your name, French.
Before you jump in, French, because I just want to go to Yo-Yo's comment. I don't think we're saying Saka's poor by any means. I think what happened to that kid this summer is probably still weighing very heavily on him. And he has obviously got targets on his back. Like Burnley, every time he received the ball, 3 players were drawn to him. And he's still young. He's still finding his feet. I don't think he's poor. He has been directly involved in a lot of our goals. I don't know that he is equipped with the right players around him. When he's with England, he's next level, but those players have more class than a lot of what we have, right? So, that happens. If you throw Saka into City, he's a world beater. When you have better players around you, you're just a better player. He's just in weird form right now. But sorry, French, to cut you off.
No, that's right. Yeah, I think first of all, what Owen said is I completely agree. I think that's very well said in terms of just the output. If you look at just what they're doing on the pitch, there's something to consider.
I'm taking the bullet for you, French, because I was just following you, but then but yeah, that's my job as a host.
We're not going to have many players. So Pepe is our only in prime attacker, and he's like one of our only in prime players. Everyone else is like a kid or an old man, pretty much. Saka just turned 20. This progression is never linear, and it's ridiculous that he's been so consistently good at his age. Like, it's preposterous. And I think that's maybe to an extent totally jaded fans as to what they should expect from like a young player developing. You know, he's had a not great month by his standards. I think everyone would agree to that. And yet, as many people have mentioned, he's still been involved in so many of our goals. I think there's also something to be said about not just Saka. I heard someone else mention this. I can't remember who it was, so I'm just going to take credit for it. Most of the England players haven't looked great since returning from the Euros. You know, all around the different squads, whether it be, you know, Foden or United, Maguire, and even Shaw. You know, these players aren't in the kind of blistering form that they were in the season before or during the Euros. And I think, yeah, it takes a huge hit on all of them. Not, you know, to mention Saka, who obviously had, you know, that last kick with a huge amount of pressure. But I think on top of all the games that he's played, it's completely natural for him to have a little dip in form. I'm really not kind of worried about it, but I do think there is something to be said for just sitting him down for a little bit and dropping him. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm not there in the training with him. I don't know what what the medical staff are saying on him. Maybe he's a player who they want to, you know, he's still very important to what we're doing, even in bad form, and we can try and play him through a bit of poor form. I'm not really too worried about it, to be honest, because I know if he goes to the bench, we've got like Martinelli to come off, you know. We've got other players that we want to see. We've got ESR we can put out there. It's not really a concern for me. I just, as Owen said, I don't really want to put too much pressure on any individual youngster at this point, and just enjoy what they do when they do it well. When they're not doing great, remember how good they are, and they're gonna be doing it again soon.
See, I think that that's part of the problem here. I think, and I'm just looking at some of the chat, and the reason I'm highlighting this one is because I know that this guy can take it. Is Aston Mack, and he says ASR was incredibly poor at Burnley. He was supposed to play as a rotation leader with Partey and Odegaard, but really struggled to gather the ball from deep areas in the pitch.
He was just trying to get you to say per. That's what that whole question was built around.
That one's for you, buddy. No, but see, this is where I have my problem, because we're actually taking a wee bit of flack in the chat for criticizing Bukayo Saka, and it's one thing to say that a player isn't good enough for that we'll have to drop him, or that he's crap sell him, and it's another time to say, it's another thing completely to say that his statistical output hasn't been enough, which is factual, that he isn't in the best of form, which is factual. And then that's what Aston was saying to me, and then in response he criticized another one of our youngsters, saying that he was which is the exact same thing that I was doing with Bukayo Saka. So that's what I mean. Like, it isn't a direct insult to somebody to say that they haven't been up to standard. You know, the Bukayo Saka is undoubtedly, arguably, the best all-round talent that we have coming out of our youth system in terms of, you know, how high his ceiling could be. But unfortunately, he just doesn't have them figures. You know, when you look around the class of 92 at Manchester United coming in, they had Roy Keane and Steve Bruce and, you know, Eric Cantona to come in with. Who do these kids have to look to? Nobody. You know, all of our senior players are essentially prima donnas. They haven't got that senior figure to drag them through and show them the right way to do things. And that's what I mean, is that...
Sure they do. They've got Xhaka.
But exactly, that's a curse more than anything. But that's exactly what I mean, is that my worry is that we're thrusting them into the spotlight too early in the wrong environment for them to thrive and develop.
This is a small sample size. It's early in the season after a pretty long summer tournament for at least one of those guys, and I just think maybe we kind of need to chill. I mean, everything that we're saying is valid and reasonable to talk about, but I don't think you can really form conclusions yet. So it's a cyclical game. You're going to go through the through the ups and downs, especially when you are 19, or when you're 19 until you're 20. That's how it works.
I do wonder too, though. Owen just brought up the point, like, they're young and they're being thrown into, I think he's at the deep end, but what if they're not, right? What if Arteta has sat down with a lot of these players and said, listen, he's obviously built a squad for a couple seasons from now, but what if he's gone to these players and just said, listen, this is your time to get embedded into the squad. There's no stress. Just go out there and play, get the experience. Like, we're not looking at this squad and going, it's top 4. It's not. It's just
I would say that like last March and April was the time to do that. Right now is not the time to do
it's
that.
not. But I mean, the squad isn't top 4.
You can't. But you don't know how this year is going to go, and frankly, your goal right now is top 6. It's not even top 4.
Well, and like I sent it into the group.
I don't think you go doing that in September. I agree with you.
I think but what I mean, I don't think he's sitting down saying like, oh, this season's off. I think there's an approach to say like if you're in the training mold of like Mason Mount, for example, versus Saka, there's a huge pressure. Like they have a goal of Champions League and league. Whereas the conversations are probably a little bit different for Saka, Emil Smith Rowe. And I think Saka and Mount are probably the two most comparable because of
who's Mount striving to keep out of the starting lineup? Pulisic,
Pulisic.
I mean,
Werner. I mean, yeah,
really good players. Whereas Saka's, fighting to keep Charlie Patino out of the lineup. Not directly, but I mean,
it's interesting because like for all the doom and gloom from the first 2 matches, we only sit 4 points off of City.
Yeah, I mean,
but you know what I mean. Like in perspective, like we go on a decent run, then we're talking about European football, and that
this is true. By the way, I think Alexis is available on a free. He only wants £1 million a week, but
bring him back.
So let's move off of the young players and talk about somebody who is still quite young, but seemingly phenomenal for us. A lot of people are calling him rather than Tierney our future captain, and that's Martin Odegaard. I have a bone to pick with Lee Dixon here because we know how Lee feels about that play on the free kick wall where you got a player who lies down, either facing or not facing, depending on whether he's a pussy or not. The kick, and I didn't, unless I'm wrong, and again I was at a pub, so I could be wrong. I don't think anyone did that on this free kick that Odegaard took. Thus forth, they couldn't jump as high as they needed to, and it made it easier for Odegaard. I mean, Odegaard got that ball up over the wall, and it was maybe only halfway up when it went into the goal. I mean, it wasn't like it snuck under the bar. That's either a really, 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 really good free kick, or the wall just stood there like rocks. Either way, I'm thrilled with it. But French, I mean, would you have had 2 or 3 people stacked up on each other, lying down behind the wall, and then had players stay? Can they do that? Can you have a player like Owen and I are going to be on my couch in Highbury when I'm there the next week? Can you have a player, and then you have another player lying on top of that player? And then another player lying on top of that player, and then the wall standing on top of that.
On your shoulders.
I'm starting.
Why would you just put someone on your shoulders?
I don't recall seeing a rule against that.
I thought you told me you didn't have tactical nous, Mike. Whoa.
Do one of those like cheerleading pyramid things.
So basically, Mike wants the human centipede the wall. That's what I'm doing.
You told me you were
I'm thinking about it in a way. I'm obviously coming up to a way where people's crotches are mashed together, and Andy's just being perfectly reasonable with his. Okay. Yeah,
my favorite thing about it was I'm pretty sure it went over Barnes's head. I think he was one of the dudes who just did not jump at all and just kind of watched it fly over his head into the goal.
There was a freeze frame of the image, and like he was basically Michael Jackson on his tiptoes. And so whoever his coaches probably went back
getting the moonwalk.
What the fuck, dude?
I mean, look, normally we're critical about Arsenal for like Xhaka turning his back or Bellerin turning his back and stuff. I'm thrilled at how this went, but it just brings up so many questions about football strategy. I mean, I've always wondered why, they don't just get the biggest, fattest goalkeeper that you can and just like have me stand in the goal.
Can we rewind about 3 minutes and deep dive the fact that Mike was asking you, French, what you thought about him and Owen making a wall laying on top of each other when they're together in a few weeks?
I like someone mentioned in the chat. It's the second time they've heard about human centipede today.
It wouldn't even be a wall. We would just merge to become one person with
we're as one. Well, and the reason I thought about that is because when I told Owen he could stay on my couch instead of in a hotel, what did you say? What was your question for me?
Top to tail or side by side?
So that's what that's the image that was in my head when I was thinking about that. But
and what's the answer?
I don't know. We need a
Few drinks and see where it goes.
Well, yeah,
I feel like you always go top to tail.
I think that's what I said.
Like, do you want his head next to your face or his feet? That's the options that you have.
I've seen videos of him getting like a pedicure, and fuck that. I would rather his penis in my face than his fucking feet at my face.
You know what, Owen? I'm gonna go with you on that one. I would say, cock before feet. And I will say this: Ola once crashed at my Airbnb, and I was so passed out. I think he top and tailed with me, even though he had his own room to go sleep in. I'm almost certain that he top and tailed with me. So,
well, and we've all seen the picture of Tom Canton sleeping at my house.
Recreating that.
Okay, we don't have to play the whole thing.
Your foot is so gross. If you ever want to see a grown man cry, take Mike to get a pedicure.
No, it wasn't the grown man that was crying. It was the pedicure. It was the whole team of pedicures.
Do you reckon they drew straws when you walked in? You know, like
they had to close that place down to fumigate it after we left.
Dude, I'm not even kidding. A guy drove through the front door of that place and like smashed in the front, and I'm almost certain it was the lady who did Mike's pedicure. She just needed time off, so she.
I've had maybe 3 pedicures in my entire life, and 2 of them have been with Andy. And we've only seen each other 3 times.
True. So, did you guys talk about?
I've just lost my job on Lee Judge's TV. I'm pretty sure.
Did you guys talk about Odegaard center mid already?
Touched it a bit, but not in detail. I think there's more to go into, to be honest.
Do we think that's
not just? It wasn't just centre mid. There was times at the start where it was like the full-on Xhaka role, right? Like he came back in almost left back in the build-up, which I thought was interesting.
Do you think that was due to? Do you think that was instructional, or do you think that was him sort of adapting to see what the game needed? Because he done that against Norwich as well, if I'm thinking right. And I think maybe what that is, French, is maybe just like a level of frustration and the lack of creative build-up, and maybe him taking the onus to take that upon himself.
I think it's both. I think there's, without a doubt, when you look at the heat map, I think there's clear instruction, because it's so clearly the thing that Xhaka was doing a lot during our build-up was dropping into that left-back position when Tierney would go forward and kind of helping provide that ball up the left that we love doing. So I think it had to be partially instructional, but at the same time, it completely fits in with his personality, and he was demanding it a lot. I think there is I think you're right that there's a point to which he also had he just wanted to dictate the game. He's a technical kind of metronome, you know, and he just keeps it ticking over in that way. And he was fantastic at doing that. But I think that's a really interesting kind of point, because we all think about Sambi pushing Xhaka out of the team, but it'll be interesting if it ends up being Odegaard. And we all thought as well, like, right, when ESR got the 10 and Odegaard got the 8, we're like, well, those numbers are the wrong way around. But if Odegaard's playing this deep, I mean, he's not really playing like a 10. He's playing, you know, a completely different role.
Odegaard strikes me as the type of player, probably a little bit similar to Xhaka, where he just doesn't give a shit where he plays. If he's on the pitch, he's just happy. You know, like he seems like that type of player where he's like, I'll just do whatever I got to do. And if he, you know, I thought he was superb playing in that role. Probably had a little bit of confidence knowing that Partey was just behind him, like basically stopping everything and then just passing him the ball and we drove forward. But he looked absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Arani is surprised at his work rate, because that was something that was questioned before he came in. You know, I think what we have here, and I know people don't like the comparisons, but there is that comparison. We've got a turbocharged Mesut Ozil. I think it's Ozil with work rate. Are you surprised at the amount he's willing to press? Because for me, it seemed like he's almost the man on the street orchestrating that press.
There were times where he was sprinting down the keeper or trying to push the players up. I mean, I said it a few weeks ago. Like, he is everything we wanted in Ozil with the work rate. You know, like he's the entire package. But
I didn't surprise me exactly. Sorry, go on.
No. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it didn't surprise me exactly because I think he did a lot of that kind of pressing roles in whenever he's playing at Madrid or Real Sociedad or Norway. I think you saw it a lot in this kind of scouting footage. So it's something that, and obviously it's something that Arteta wanted. So to me, it kind of, it's something that I kind of expect of him. I know he's going to be that kind of leading trigger in the press if he's playing in the front line. He almost sometimes plays in front of the striker when we're out of possession. But I will say, like, if we're honest, Ozil, if he was playing against Burnley, it wouldn't have been quite like he's not quite Mesut Ozil in terms of the final ball. You know, like he's not there. He's not on that level. He doesn't have. But what he does do.
I was just gonna say he doesn't have the game of Mesut Ozil. Sorry.
Here, let me find the mic. Stop talking.
I'm done.
I was just saying he's the pass before the pass. He's the one who facilitates that final ball. He doesn't necessarily make it himself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember there was we played West Ham 4 or 5 seasons ago.
It's the team you really support, isn't it?
Huh?
It's the team you really support.
Ozil had a pass. And the graphic showed everyone on the pitch going one direction in the flow of play, and Ozil just pinged it across field. Player was wide open. We scored. I think third or fourth we scored in that game, but it was just the vision of him. And to French's point, Odegaard doesn't have that because after I saw that graphic, there were moments where the play was going one way and Ozil just turned on a dime, and all of a sudden it was a different direction. And you're just Jesus, and he was never facing that way. He just knew the player was there.
Is that something you can acquire with time, though? And
I'm just going to say I'm not quite sure that that's a fair judgment just yet, because what I think as Arsenal fans, what we have done is we massively underrated the team that we had at the time. Alexis Sanchez, Theo Walcott, Olivier Giroud, name whoever, Thomas Rosicky, all these players. I don't think that Odegaard has that movement or experience or know-how in front of him yet, because there has been times, I think there was a real pinpoint ball that he dinked over the top to Tierney maybe, and it was literally inches in terms of room for error. So I think he does have that ability. I just think it's going to take a while to shine through, and I think as much as Odegaard, even though he was here for 6 months last time, I think it's going to take not only him time to learn to play with the players he's playing with, but it's going to take those players time to learn what he's capable of.
I think to Mike's point, you can. I think you can coach it, but just to say on Owen, remember when I was coaching a team and I had a 15-year-old who would put passes into space, and there was no one there, and all the parents would yell, "Stop passing it to nobody!" And I'm like, no, that's where someone should have run. And so I think you've just got players who see the vision, and they're they're
one step ahead of everyone that's watching, including their own teammates sometimes.
She's now a Division I player, which I had her when she was 13, and I could.
Was she one of the ones where I was in the corner with the Diet Coke and the donuts watching?
Yes. Yes.
I love this. I agree with this comment from Mark, and I also love how he took the time to find the special O for Odegaard, but not the special O for Ozil. I mean, if it were both or none, then okay. But clearly
it's clear he hates Ozil.
Yes, I think the bias is just reeking from that comment, Mark. So thank you for that. I'd like to, if we can, no offense, Andy, but I want to try to, with the time we have left, skip through some of the. I mean, Ben White's been covered ad nauseum on all the usual podcasts. Tomasayu, Gabby, I mean, just absolute studs over the last couple of games. If anyone really wants to,
Tomasayu, who's Tomasayu?
Tomiyasu, sorry.
He plays for Ghana.
Yeah, I was going to say he's going to AFCON in a couple of weeks.
The one thing I'll say on Ben White and his defense, okay, and this is literally a 2-second thing, is that he was bad at the things that he's very good at.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. We've seen him be great at the things that he's been awful at. That was going to be my point. We know he's not this bad,
Right, which is why I'm not really getting worried. These aren't systemic things, apparently. These are just, he had a bad game. But
what makes me excited is when he's in his form and Gabriel's in form, they're going to be superb together. It's going to be exciting.
And yet we still have 2 clean sheets. Opponent forget who the opponent was, they still had 2 clean sheets. So, I mean, Barnes is not someone that we've typically had a great deal of success keeping out of the back of our net, and
I absolutely love how it's like people consider it the standard test, playing against Barnes and Wood. When they're just
guys that always seem that
these guys
like
were so good. Burnley would be finishing in the top fucking 6 every year. It's like
if they played us every game, they would finish in the top 6 every year because Barnes and Shane Long and that other jackass that played at QPR for a while. Those guys
shout out to the
Charlie
Ireland fans.
Austin.
We had the best football banner ever. We played Spain in the Euros maybe, and a fan held up a banner saying, "You've got Xavi and Iniesta, but we have got long cocks."
Is that and he's going to AFCON as well. All right, so if you have a question, and I given the theme and the way this podcast has got, I almost hesitate to ask, but user questions in the chat, please put them up there with the big Q. And I want to get your thoughts on, everyone's talking about what you do for Spurs with the starting 11. Let's talk about Wimbledon 2 days from now, because there's a lot of different ways we could go with this. I mean, look, we're not playing 2 games every week, so playing 2 games on some weeks probably should be okay fitness-wise for some of these players. But we're also playing an opponent that maybe you could make 7, 8, even 9 changes for.
Where's Lacazette?
Well, he's one to talk about because he's perfectly fit as far as anybody knows. Just hasn't figured into the last couple games. So starting with you, Andy, do you go with a couple of changes for Wednesday, or do you go with a completely changed around lineup?
Considering it's Spurs.
I'm talking about Wimbledon. Oh, you mean the game?
Yeah. Considering it's Spurs at the weekend, I would go with a complete overhaul. I would play your Lacazettes. I would even, what's that young kid's name? Patino?
How many Lacazettes do we have, though?
I would put, was it Patino? Patano?
Patino.
I would put him in.
Rick Patino.
I think we should give our third choice keeper, Bird Leno, a run out, keep him fresh. I would change because, listen.
Give Carl Hein a break and just play Leno instead?
Yeah. Wimbledon is not going to cause us trouble. So I would rest those who need to be rested. I'd give Martinelli a run out.
Clip that.
What?
Yeah, clip that. I mean, we better at least have all those guys on the bench, and not wait until the 75th minute when we're down 1 to Wimbledon to bring in the reinforcements. But
yeah. We've it's clear that these young kids are his plan and that he's going to play them. So give them some rest and just allow some of the other players to get their feet under them.
For the record, I agree with you, and all you have to think about is one game. Who was it against? It was maybe Sheffield Wednesday, a midweek cup game where in the first 15 minutes of the game, I think Theo Walcott and Chamberlain got hurt.
So let's quickly do this, right? So we all agree Leno's probably going to start in goal.
Yeah.
Then we're going to.
I certainly hope so.
Cedric on the right or Chambers?
Cedric.
Just because Sophie's in the chat, I'm going to go with Chambers.
Okay.
Then he'll play at center back.
Then no, because center back's going to be Kolasinac and Holding. Right.
Well, look, if you're making 8 changes, then yes. But let before we start doing your starting 11, let me hear from French and Owen. I mean, are you, because one of the two of you or both might actually think that we need to kind of keep the solidity together, whether it's Wimbledon or Spurs or Sutton United or whoever. So
I'll jump in just before because I'm not going to touch on any individual people that I would include. All I'm going to say is that for me, trophies have sort of taken the edge off the lack of success in the league over recent years. And for me, people like silverware, and that's what football is about. But for me this year, screw the cup competitions. I could care less about either of them, to be honest with you. For me, it's all about progression in the league. So for me, I want to see the kids given a run out.
Okay, so you'd make a lot of changes, French.
I'm not thinking about the end of the road of the silverware at this point. I think we just need to win games of football as a club. I think the team are still shell-shocked from that start of the season. I think that's part of what the lack of fluidity that we're seeing is that people are a little bit just scared, like we were saying before. I don't think they're scared of the manager so much as scared of just being ass and just, you know, looking terrible. And that's how we've looked for the first 3 games. So now there's just this element of maybe a bit rushing or snatching at chances or hesitating, and it's just not quite clicking. And if we want it to click, we want to find our rhythm, and we want these strikers to start scoring goals and our creators to start assisting, then for me, it makes sense to really keep that lineup very, like, not make too many changes. I think Leno makes sense. I wouldn't be, Lacazette might happen to rest Aubameyang, but Aubameyang needs goals as well at the same time. So I really don't expect that many changes to be made. I don't see where Balogun's minutes are going to come from if he doesn't have some sort of part to play in this sort of game.
Well, can he play? Can Balogun play anywhere other than up top? Because Lacazette would almost be the perfect player to be the continuity with a younger lineup, and you know, Lacazette just seems to thrive in that environment, and the players really look up to him. So, I want to see Martinelli, I want to see Balogun, but I also want to see Lacazette. So, can you do that?
I think Martinelli can come in. I like I said, if we don't see Balogun make appearances now, I'm kind of worried if it could be another kind of Nketiah second half of last season situation where it's like, why didn't he go out on loan sort of thing? So I want to see Balogun play for that reason. And to be honest, he's more part of our future than Lacazette is. And if, there's no real argument for Lacazette to play if we don't intend to play him in the league. We don't ultimately care about the silverware at the end. And he's not going to be someone we need to keep in form because we don't. Well, to be fair, we might need him at some point. So I think Lacazette will get minutes. I'll be surprised.
I would start Lacazette on Sunday, but knowing that he's not going to get started on Sunday, Alba's starting on Sunday if he shows up on time, and that. So I'm just looking at Wimbledon because when it comes to how easy can we take this team? Never take a team easy. I'm not recommending that, but Wimbledon is points behind Rotherham, Wickham, Plymouth Argyle, and tied on points with Accrington Stanley. Accrington Stanley.
Near Liverpool, isn't it?
So when MK Dons and Wimbledon play each other, is it like a huge derby? I don't know that I've ever. I didn't realize they were in the same competition this year. But the Wimbledon and Dons, is that like a big? Anyone in the chat who might know, is that a big rivalry now? But anyway, they've got to be. They're going to be geared up for the game. Unlike West Brom, they're not going to be starting a B team. I would imagine they'll be starting the best that they've got.
Question: has anyone broke it to judges yet that when he finds out we're playing Wimbledon that he doesn't get like the center court? Has anyone told him that yet?
No, I think he's got his prawn sandwich and what is it? Mint? What kind of juleps?
I do think we're going to rotate heavily. I'm on the opposite side of French here. I think he's gonna go with like Martinelli, drop Saka or Pepe, like give some of these bigger players a rest. I agree though with Balogun. Like if you're keeping him at the club, this is the ideal fixture for him to come in. I mean, it doesn't make sense to not send him out on loan if you're not going to play him in matches like this. And you never know what Wimbledon, like Owen, to your point, like Wimbledon may not be looking at this as serious, like West Brom. They may be saying like, hey, we're going to go to the league. So we might be playing another Wimbledon under 23s.
Well, that's true, because if they are trying to really, get a push up to get in the championship, I don't know. But I mean, we're not going to win the League Cup, they're probably saying. So why should we even bother? You would see the better team resting players because they think they can coast to a win. But in this competition, you might actually see the opposite.
But like when I look at the lineup, I think, drop Partey, put El Nini in, right?
Or Mainsley. Mainsley can play there.
Well, I was going to say put Mainsley as center mid. You can Martinelli, Balogun, Lacazette up front. Everyone keeps harping on this Patino guy. Okay, this is a great fixture as well. Put him on the bench, or at least like include him somehow, right? Like,
I think if this gives us anything, it will give us a sort of preempt as to what the team could be against Spurs on Sunday. Because I think that if the likes of Sambi Lokonga isn't included, you can almost guarantee that he'll be starting as well. If Nuno Tavares doesn't play, Tavares as you would say, Mike.
Noon Tavares.
Noon Tavares, yeah. If he doesn't play, you can probably assume that Kieran Tierney isn't back to full fitness yet, and that he will likely feature. If Lacazette plays, you can guarantee that he won't be playing. So,
but then if we win 8-0 on Wednesday, then he'll probably just leave it unchanged for Sunday from that team.
Yeah, probably against Wimbledon under fucking sevens or some shit. But
Vinnie Jones' grandson comes trotting out.
Yeah,
Mom.
Yeah.
Mom,
it's not daylight savings.
Didn't you tell me it was daylight savings in England last weekend?
No, it's last weekend in October.
Oh, busted.
It must have been Dad. Someone told me because I was 30 minutes.
Oh, busted. Hey, Mom.
Hi, Mike. No.
Love that she knew who I was without even saying. All right. So anyway, we do have some questions.
I had it from chilling too.
Hi, French. Hi, Owen.
Hi,
All right, go.
Lovely woman. Although I did have to cook my own eggs when I came to his house. So
She's making shepherd's pie tonight.
Nice. David Ziegler asks of you, Andy, is Rob Holding the Johan Juru of Thomas Vermaelens?
I feel bad for Holding because he's just like been completely kicked out of the squad and he wasn't that bad. Like Pablo Mari has been fucking awful and Holding must just be sitting there being like, I'm not that bad. Right? But to answer the question, yes.
He can at least take solace in the fact that he's here and Saliba isn't, right? I mean, he won that motherfucker. So
sorry,
yeah,
Mark, she left.
All right. What's our next question here?
Danny had a good question. It was, would we rather lose to Wimbledon 14-0 if we won 1-0 at Spurs? French.
14-0. That's Danny watching too much Miami Dolphins yesterday.
Yeah, no, because that's like they wouldn't even get remembered. The 1-0 win versus Spurs would be completely irrelevant. They would literally not care about it. Not in terms of for us, but for them. Like the entire league would just be laughing at us. That's like historic.
Yeah, I mean 14-0, I guess is
it's not it's
I take it.
But I would take a 40-0 win against Spurs if we lose 1-0 to Wimbledon.
So we all in agreement that we have to put Danny in a timeout?
No, I would probably take that.
Would you take? Okay, so you would take a 14-0 loss. Would you take just any loss to Wimbledon if it meant a win to Spurs?
As we know from our private messages in our WhatsApp group, I've got pretty low standards, so this probably wouldn't affect me that much.
Okay, what if it was a 14-0 loss, but Wimbledon went on to win the cup?
Yeah, fine.
Would you take a 1-0 win against Spurs if it meant that Lee Judges would have her way with this nice young lady?
Who's that? Oh, is that Owen's mom?
This is turning into that game that Andy hated, the What's More Important Than Arsenal.
I'm going to find pictures of all your moms.
This is what I'm so glad that my mother is not on Facebook. Although I'm sure it's not hard to find. Who else? There was another...
Can I just say that thing behind French, is one of those like partitions where I just have a feeling.
Is there like a sushi
sexy
bar?
Women behind there just changing their clothes,
or like a sushi bar or something like that?
It does also look like a sushi bar.
There's both. Yeah, there's both.
Just hot,
sexy women making sushi.
It also looks like guys' podcast. Like.
No. I love French asked me because we almost had him on last week and then we had to change things around on our end. But he's like, I can say stuff on your podcast, right? Like compared to Tom's, and I'm like, yeah, I think you could probably do that. So nice of him to ask.
Like, yeah. I'm gonna be starting my own podcast soon, actually. Which is I've got a couple of like sports segments, but a big part of it is relationships, men, women, sex, all that good shit. And it's gonna be me and like three other girls. Well, 3 girls and me. So
me and 3 other girls.
It's literally the opposite of our podcast.
So basically, it's just gonna be, what's the name of the pod?
I'm working title is Man Up. The working title is Man Up.
Yeah. Dude, that is awesome. Now you could probably get your podcast onto Pornhub and stay there, whereas ours was ripped off. We had 2 episodes on Pornhub for like a year or 2, and then they like somehow changed their algorithm, and we were booted off.
Still,
Which I
my
think is
favorite is
dreadful.
the comment, "Why is this here?"
someone came across it like
Yeah.
mid-session.
And then they went out of their way to create a profile to comment, "Why is this here?" And then when I told Mike, right, when I was like, "Hey, Mike, it'd be really funny if we did this," he did it, which I didn't think he would. But then he texted me and he's like, "So we don't have porn names, and they ask what category we are, so I put guy on guy, so we're on the gay porn hub."
I would love to know what the dude searched to find the video.
Well, I'm an honest young man. So, when he asked, like who started, and I wasn't going to say there were like 2 women in it, because then I would have been lying.
No.
Man, those were the days. All right. So someone's got to go pretty soon, but are you all going to be upset when Abba, Laka, and Xhaka are all in the starting 11 on Sunday? Yeah, I will be. I would be. I'll be more upset after the game if it doesn't work out. But
isn't Xhaka still suspended? Is that the third one of his 3?
No. Wednesday's the third one, and
that's right.
That's what.
Yeah,
I mean, every single podcast I've watched or been on, the topic has come up, and I have not seen one person who truly believes that Arteta will leave Xhaka out. Everyone doesn't want him to play, and everyone knows he's going to play. So, like, what's the meltdown going to be at 3:30 p.m. UK time when that lineup comes out? It's going to be more anticipated than even like last year when we all would just keep hitting refresh to see if Willian was playing or not.
I think the meltdown will be worse at
5 o'clock,
4:06 p.m. when he's red-carded.
when we're down to 10 men.
Yeah.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
That was like I remember the World Cup. I think the U.S. was playing against Portugal, or Portugal was playing against Germany in the same group, or something happened like that. And Pepe, not our Pepe, but Real Madrid's Pepe, got a red card, as he is wont to do in just about every game he plays. And I was just annoyed because I was like, now he's out for the next game, which is cool, but he can't hurt them in the next game by making them go down to 10. That's kind of how I feel about Xhaka. Like, I wish we could just get an exception to play him against Wimbledon, get the red done then, and then it's 3 more. But hey.
I can't see, based off of the last 2 matches and the lineup that he's gone with, that he would revert to putting Xhaka back in. I just don't see it.
That's common sense, though. But he's in love with him.
No, but I think if anything, that he'll be very aware of the fan pressure that will come with that decision, and especially if it doesn't pay off. You're talking about a man who was 2 games ago literally 1 result away from getting the sack, maybe, and 2 less than ideal performances that managed to scrape by and get us results aren't really good enough to relieve that pressure. And I think that if he turns around, somebody put in something in the chat there, one of our co-hosts, Jared, says that if he doesn't start Ramsdale, there was that article which I'm putting down to nonsense, that Leno was promised to start in the North London derby, which I just can't see that being true. But
that's not a thing. You don't get promised to start a game that's 3 games away after a bust up in the train. No, I mean, what decided whether he would start against North London derby was Ramsdale starting and playing a blinder over the weekend. There is no path back for Leno until Ramsdale does, throws the ball into his own net 3 times in a game now at this point, other than to play in the cups. So
I know that English is the second language, but Mike Hers wrote he wasn't close to getting sacked.
No, Mike Hers is Jamaican apparently now.
Yeah. Listen, if Xhaka starts will we play Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
If Xhaka starts on Sunday,
but we're turning our clocks back on Friday, so a whole day. So you'll need to adjust, and it'll be Saturday.
Hey, you know who won't be listening to? That trick ass hoe that just left. Because she lied to me. She lied to me. This isn't going out on iTunes. Anyway. No one's gonna listen. Hey, did you figure out?
Two people's mothers are getting absolutely roasted in this podcast today. French, you're not next. We don't do that to guests.
Better than the roasting that Lee Judges gave her.
I mean, they do call him half pint.
That's why Owen's so small. Back to your point, though, about
all I would say is if Xhaka starts on Sunday, that's it. Arteta is done. Like, he is literally done for me. That's because
Xhaka or Ramsdale. I mean, either one of them plays.
No, like I don't care if Leno plays or if Ramsdale plays. Like, both are going to do fine if they're in the goal. But if Xhaka starts, what we've seen out of Lokonga and now Odegaard playing in that position, they're both just naturally better players than Xhaka. So, if they both, if everyone's healthy and Xhaka starts, that's it for me. I'm done.
Ryan Fletcher's having you, Owen. You set him up.
I'll take the assist.
Well, thank you to the chat. I think if we're not canceled already, we should end this before it happens. So a huge thank you to the chat. Ryan, Mark, John, thank you for coming in. No shepherd's pie for Andy. You're right. Kevin, I'm calling all the people who I know their actual names by their actual names because it makes me, seem kind of more approachable and nice. Yo-Yo, I have no idea what your real name is, so I'm just going to call you Yo-Yo. David, thanks for joining us, and Danny, of course. Jared, we'll see you very soon. Back on the big show, and Peter Renner, everybody else, low-key, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you coming over here after the squad was over, and stay tuned for some big news. You're going to be seeing more of me because I'm going to be eating even more, and there'll be more to see. But start watching Lee Judges TV if you're not already, because there's some really good content on there. And every other Tuesday, starting a week from tomorrow, there'll be a bad show that they're putting on, and you'll want to watch that because it'll be called Arsenal Soup, and it has nothing to do with this, but we'll see how that goes. So anyway, Andy, thanks for joining us for half the show.
Yeah, sorry, boys. I really Xhaka'd that, didn't I?
Owen, good to see you again. Thanks for showing up on time.
Yeah, punctual. That's
French.
the main thing about being a podcast host.
Seriously,
French,
it's like 11:30 here. What are you doing awake still?
Was this everything you thought it was going to be? Is it worse? Is it better? Are you still,
Yeah, man, it was good fun. It was like, I'm bummed that it's like 10:30 or whatever, and I'm getting fucking nationalities wrong, getting destroyed for it and shit. Like,
but this is the place to do that. I mean, we're home to everybody. Yeah, Daniel, what have I missed? Go back and watch. This was this was not the one that we almost won the football content award a few years ago for. This was. I believe the word is dubious, but yes. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Hope the next time we see you, we will have I think we'll do an open mic after the Wimbledon after the Wimbledon game. We'll see how that goes, and that'll be episode 302. Andy, we hit 300 over the weekend. And I didn't even know it. So, and I hit 300 a couple of weeks ago. So. All right.
Hey,
so thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
remember,
and for anyone who's watching this but hasn't been able to get iTunes, we are aware and we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, Andy's on the case. Which
and
means,
if anyone if anyone in the future is backlogging these on iTunes, because that's where a lot of our listens come, we're sorry.
Yeah,
if you're gonna blame anyone, and I'm just saying this as we sign off, Mike.
Your mom.
It's a little bit suspicious that the iTunes stopped working when we bought Mike on.
So you're blaming this on hers, then?
I'm just saying conspiracy.
You're not saying it's his fault, but you're not.
I'm not saying it's his fault.
Exactly. All right. Let's go, Gooners. Come on, you Gooners.